What happens when a nuclear superpower's weapons accidentally strike NATO soil? This isn't a hypothetical wargame scenario. This is happening right now in real time, and it's pulling the world closer to the brink of World War III than at any point since the Cuban Missile Crisis. In September 2024, Russian drones crossed into Romania, a NATO member country, and struck Romanian territory. The alliance is now scrambling to respond, while millions of people across Eastern Europe are wondering, is this the beginning of a wider conflict that could engulf the entire continent? Let's rewind to what actually happened. On the night of September 4th, Romania's Ministry of Defense confirmed that multiple Russian drones had entered Romanian airspace while conducting strikes against Ukrainian infrastructure across the Danube River. These weren't stray missiles off course by a few hundred meters. We're talking about deliberate incursions into NATO territory, with at least one drone striking a non-military area in the town of Limanu. Romania immediately activated Article 5 procedures, meaning it formally notified all NATO allies that an armed attack had occurred on its territory. This is the first time since the Cold War that a Russian weapon has directly struck a NATO country, and the implications are staggering. Now, why does Romania matter so much in this equation? Romania is not just any NATO member. It sits on the Black Sea, sharing an over 350-mile border with Ukraine. It hosts the American missile defense system in Devasulu, one of the most significant U.S. military installations in Eastern Europe. And critically, Romania has become a major logistics hub for Western military aid flowing into Ukraine. Every weapon, every shipment, every piece of equipment that reaches Ukrainian forces often passes through Romanian territory. This makes Romania both strategically vital and symbolically charged in Putin's eyes. When Russian drones strike Romania, they're not just hitting a NATO member, they're sending a direct message to the West that their support for Ukraine has consequences, and those consequences are arriving on NATO soil. But here's where things get even more complicated. Russia denied responsibility at first, then shifted its story, claiming the drones were targeting Ukrainian port infrastructure and accidentally crossed the border due to technical malfunctions and GPS jamming. NATO officials aren't buying it. Intelligence assessments from multiple Western agencies suggest these drones have sophisticated navigation systems designed to resist jamming. They're not losing their way accidentally. They know exactly where they're going. And some are arriving precisely where Moscow wants to send a warning. The question that keeps military analysts up at night is simple. Is this a calculated escalation designed to test NATO's red lines, or is it an accidental drift toward a conflict that no one actually wants? NATO's response has been measured but firm. The alliance has reinforced its air defense presence in Romania, deploying additional Patriot missile batteries and increasing aerial reconnaissance missions along the eastern flank. NATO jets have intercepted Russian aircraft more than 300 times since the war in Ukraine began, but a physical strike on territory changes everything. Article 5 is crystal clear. An attack on one member is an attack on all. Yet the alliance is walking a tightrope. If they escalate too hard, they risk giving Putin the justification he needs to frame NATO as the aggressor. If they respond too weakly, they signal that striking NATO territory carries no real cost. It's a no-win scenario designed to fray Western unity, and it's working. Different European nations are already splitting on how to respond, with some pushing for harsh retaliation and others advocating for de-escalation. The historical context here cannot be overstated. This is the closest the world has come to direct military confrontation between Russia and NATO since 1962. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world held its breath for 13 days as Kennedy and Khrushchev stared each other down over nuclear missiles in Cuba. Today, there's no single crisis moment, no dramatic confrontation. Instead, there's a slow-motion escalation, a grinding series of incidents designed to incrementally normalize the idea of Russia hitting NATO targets. Each incursion desensitizes the West a little more. Each strike gets a little closer to a major population center. The goal isn't necessarily full-scale war. It's creeping intimidation, a strategic campaign to make NATO members afraid of their own shadow. So where does this go from here? The most likely scenario is more of the same. More drones crossing borders, more warnings, more NATO scrambles. But there's a darker possibility that cannot be ignored. What happens when a Russian drone strikes a US soldier, or hits a NATO weapons depot, or lands on a NATO base with American personnel? Those are the triggers that could spiral out of control in hours, not days. The fog of war is thick. Communication channels are limited, and the margin for miscalculation is razor thin. This is what makes the current moment so dangerous. We are not in a war, but we're no longer at peace either. We're in a gray zone that Russia has deliberately created, one where the rules of engagement are unclear, where accidental escalation is just one malfunction away, and where the world watches with bated breath hoping that someone, somewhere will step back from the edge. The question is, will they? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting videos.